Hello and welcome to this video everybody, I'm Cav and here we're going to be giving a rundown through round 3 of the BUSR Summer Championship with highlights from our action in ACC, iRacing, F123 and Dirt Rally 2.0. The third round of ACC has our competitors taking on the old school Brands Hatch circuit in Kent, this time in our endurance format with 75 minutes of intense racing in store for the drivers. Some pacey laps came in for Josh Lodge and Jimmy Lynn in their McLarens. However, it was Jack Noller and his Mercedes that snatched pole position by 0.3 of a second. As the lights went green and the flag dropped, it was a measured start with battles taking place throughout the grid. There was an intense battle between Marley Watts and Aidan Chatburn in the opening laps of the race, with Watts defending hard into Druids. However, with Chatburn sticking it around the outside, he had the inside line coming into Graham Hill Bend to make the brilliant move stick. Josh Lodge made a fantastic move into Hawthorne Bend to get past Colin McCullough, sitting on the inside after a good run coming down the hill. In the dying embers of the race, Jimmy Lynn lost the rear of his car into Paddock Hill Bend, opening the door for Josh Lodge to sail past into P4. There was drama too as an unsighted Chatburn T-boned the stricken Ferrari of Astrakansev, which left quite the mark on both drivers' cars. In the end, however, it was Angus Fender that made a 3 for 3 and took the win in round 3 with Jack Noller and Joe Scher, who took the Juniors class win, finishing in 2nd and 3rd respectively. Next week, prepare yourself for a challenging race as the GT3s take themselves over to the Hungaroring. This week in iRacing, our drivers were brought to the Virginia International Raceway back in their trusty Mazda MX-5s. Qualifying saw a usual suspect up at the top with Peter Stather taking pole, with Charlotte Perkins taking a fantastic 2nd place. Watson Gold took 3rd and 4th, which left Jonan Turner at the back in P5. As the first race got underway, so did the incidents. Watts dips a wheel into the grass under brake for the first corner and goes deep, as Gold and Perkins have a moment just behind, leaving Perkins sideways. After a few laps, however, Perkins was setting multiple fastest laps, with herself and Turner chasing down Stather. Cam Gold was not having a good time at the back, pitting earlier in the race and then crashing into the barriers for significant damage. Charlotte Perkins and Marley Watts both experienced some issues, doing some exploration off the track, but in the end it was Stather crossing the line first, followed by Turner then Perkins. Shenanigans didn't end there yet, however, as the drivers attempted to push Gold's stricken car across the line before the timer ran out. The second race had a scary start when Turner's wheel was faced to the right, almost causing a large collision on the launch. However, he ended up falling down to the back instead. After a couple of corners, there was another scary moment when Watts drifted across a corner, allowing Perkins up into 2nd place. Gold's day went from bad to worse a couple laps later though, as he lost control and went into the barriers again. After chasing down Stather, Perkins was able to make it into the lead, with the Scotsman having spun through the spiral, and it ended up being a battle through to the finish line for the win. Stather kept on hunting down on Perkins, who would end up finishing in 2nd to the Coventry driver, herself taking a maiden win in the BUSR, and Jonan Turner coming across the line in 3rd. Next week the drivers will head to the USA International Speedway, and they'll be back behind the wheel of those trusty street stocks. F1 this week headed to a very wet calendar for a sprint race format. In qualifying, Dasher and Matty put themselves in the front row early before the rain came and slowed the pace. TKO and Wilson were not far behind in 3rd and 4th. The weather worsened for the sprint race, and the drivers were all running on full wet tyres. Dasher and Matty had a clean start, but things were messy behind, with spins and contact being made all around. Once again, it was only half a lap before the safety car came out, and not long after Charles Simmons would crash into the barriers under the safety car. On the race restart, Dasher led the pack away, whilst TKO was next to find a wall, and a virtual safety car got brought out. A lap later, Matty would put pressure on Dasher, but was unable to find a pass. As the two raced away from the rest of the pack further back, Joe would get an overtake done on Wilson and Mad Dog for P3 after close battling to see where he'd finish, making up 6 places from the start. A mistake on the last lap from Dasher would see Matty challenge for the race win up until the final chicane, where Dasher just edged ahead, taking a sprint race win with Matty in P2. The rain would ease for the start of the Grand Prix as Dasher and Matty battled into the first turn, but it would be Dasher to come out in the lead as Matty and Joe banged wheels. Joe would make contact with Matty again a few laps later, almost causing a large collision, and would then overtake him on the straight. The top 3 dove into the pits, and Matty was forced to wait for Joe. With the track drying up, everyone is now on hard and medium tyres, but the track was still proving itself to be a challenge to stay on, as Dasher picks up a time penalty for track limits. With time came more penalties across the board, as Joe would also acquire 3 seconds. Everything was flipped when Charlotte Perkins crashed and a safety car was again brought out. Dash's reaction was quick as he would dive into the pits, but Joe would stay out. Matty would also put on the soft tyres and would come out to P4, but unlike the other cars ahead of him, he had no penalties. Once the race restarted, Dasher would be quick to get into P2, taking the long way around Doodle, and following a poor exit, Doodle would also be overtaken by Matty. Dasher attempted to pick up an overtake on Joe going into the first corner, but was pushed off the road, allowing Matty to pick up yet another position. With old medium tyres, it was not long before Joe would lose lead to the Matty on the fresher softs. In the closing laps of the race, Havoc would break loose behind, as contact was made between Joe and Dasher and the Red Bulls. With the race getting tight, Wilson and Mad Dog would come together with only 2 laps to go, sending Mad Dog into the Shadow Realm and out of the race. In the end, however, after such a frantic race, Matty would come across the line in P1, and due to penalties, Dasher would take P2 and Jaraki 3rd. Next week, our drivers will head to the Principality of Monaco for a race around the historic track. This week in Dirt Rally 2.0, our competitors headed to Mina Clavero in the region of Cordoba in Argentina, taking some behemoth Group B monsters down the famous El Condor stage. Making up for issues from last week in Greece, Penny Dobbins was able to make up for her cliff-related incident and come home in a good 3rd place. The same was the case for a wildcard enthusiast, who also suffered a similar fate in the Acropolis, who was able to get a strong 5th place finish in Argentina. The challenger who suffered the most in this event was Ashavi, who ended up struggling with flips and spins and an unsighted wall on the power stage. However, he did manage to claim a 2nd place in that end of rally power stage, making up for a 4th place overall and mitigating any damages to a potential title bid. Up at the front, it was 2 familiar faces. Jack Noller was in stellar form, taking the win by over a minute from Doomskull in 2nd place. Noller also managed to get the maximum points haul from the power stage, whereas Doomskull had to settle for 3rd or 4th place for Penelope Dobbins. Elsewhere, we had a couple of retirements in the event. Charlotte Perkins and Ed Haskell both managed to find the best bridges to throw their Group B machinery off the side of. Meanwhile, Glinty was able to come home with a strong finish, bagging some vital points for a championship run. Next week, our competitors are going to be headed to the land down under in some historic rear-wheel drive cars in the roads of Monaro, Australia, the famous Chandler's Creek stage. And so concludes our review for Week 3 of the BUSR 2023 Summer Championships. Be sure to join in on the action by following us on social media at BUSR Official or joining in our Discord server at busr.gg/discord, with sign-ups open throughout the rest of our Summer Championship, and as well as them being open to alumni in iRacing, ACC and Dirt Rally 2.0. There's a little bit of something for everybody here in the BUSR. I've been Cav, you've been awesome, thank you for watching. We'll see you around.